Hi everyone. After landing in Madrid, my journey moved south. This is Córdoba train station where I arrived on Vigo, Spain's low-cost high-speed rail. Spain runs public and private trains on the same tracks, pushing prices down and frequency up. My hostel is just 2 kilometers away, so I skip the taxi and walk into the streets of Córdoba. I pass a sign for the University of Córdoba, a reminder that this city was once one of the world's great centers of learning. Centuries ago, ideas moved freely here across cultures. Even today, that legacy lingers. Near the university gate, someone has left a pile of books on the street. It feels symbolic. Either learning still spills out into the public space, or something valuable has quietly been left behind. I am now walking along the Paseo de la Victoria, the beautiful long avenue that was historically located just outside the old city walls. It was first developed as a public promenade back in the 18th century. As I walk, I am seeing the Jardins de la Victoria, which takes its name from a long gone convent. Just off the Paseo, I pass the Iglesia de San Nicolás de la Villa. This is one of Córdoba's original Fernandine churches built right after the Christian conquest. And from there, suddenly I reach the magnificent Plaza de la Corredera. It is the only major square in Andalusia built in this classic uniform Castilian style. Leaving the grandeur of Corredera, I dove into the true heart of the old city, these narrow winding streets. This labyrinthine design is a living artifact of the city's past. You have to remember, Córdoba was once the most important city in Western Europe. During the 10th century, under the Umayyad Caliphate, it had a population of 500,000 and was a shining beacon of learning and culture. It was known as Al-Andalus, where Christians, Jews, and Muslims lived and studied together, pioneering advances in medicine, science, and philosophy. The intellectual golden age defined the entire region. My destination right now is the ultimate symbol of that incredible history, the Mezquita-Catedral. Originally a Visigothic church, then transformed into the magnificent Great Mosque of Córdoba, and finally, after the Christian Reconquista, a cathedral was built right inside its center. It stands today as the single most important monument to the complex, layered history of Spain and Andalusia. As you enter Mezquita-Cathedral of Córdoba, the first space you encounter is not the prayer hall, but an open courtyard filled with orange trees. This is the Patio de los Naranjos, the courtyard of the oranges. This courtyard began as the mosque ablution space. In Islamic practice, worshippers washed here before prayer. When the mosque was converted into a cathedral, the courtyard remained, but its character slowly changed. Its present form took shape under Bishop Francisco Reynoso, who planted rows of orange trees aligned to echo the forest columns inside the mosque. It is one of the oldest continuously used gardens in Europe. Its origins go back to 784 AD when Abdul Rahman began building the mosque. The courtyard measures roughly 50 by 30 meters and is divided into 3 sections, each centered on a fountain. Early plantings included palms, cypresses, and pomegranates. Today, there are 98 orange trees, most of them bitter oranges, arranged in precise rows that date back to at least the late 18th century. The courtyard is also a lesson in water engineering. Rainwater from the mosque's vast roof is collected into an underground cistern beneath the patio. From there, it rises into a rectangular pool fitted with spigouts. Channels then guide the water across the courtyard through brick-lined runnels set into pebble pavement. The layout is deliberate. The grid of trees mirror the alignment of the columns inside the mosque. Even the stone lines in the pavement reinforce this geometry, visually tying open courtyard and enclosed hall into one architectural idea. This design appears elsewhere in the Islamic world. Similar courtyards survive at the Cathedral of Seville, and the same irrigation logic shapes the fountains of the Alhambra and the Alcazar of Seville. In all of them, water connects buildings to gardens and interiors to open air. In the mid 6th century, this space was occupied by the Visigoth Basilica of San Vincent, the main Christian church of Córdoba. When Muslim rulers entered the city in the 8th century, the site was not immediately erased or replaced. For a time, it was shared, divided between Christian and Muslim worship. That coexistence would not last, but it shaped what came next. In the years 786 to 788 AD, Abdul Rahman I ordered the construction of a new mosque to serve Cordoba's rapidly growing Muslim population. This was the beginning of what would become the Mezquita-Catedral of Córdoba. The original mosque followed a familiar Islamic model inspired by Damascus and Jerusalem. Its floor plan consisted of 11 naves arranged perpendicular to the Qibla wall. The central nave was wider and taller, subtly guiding movement and attention through the space. One detail immediately stands out. The Qibla wall does not face Mecca. Instead, it points south. This unusual orientation has been debated for centuries and reflects early Islamic traditions in Al-Andalus rather than strict geographic alignment. Architecturally, Abdul Rahman's I mosque was radical. Builders reused Roman, Visigothic, and Hellenistic columns, giving the space a layered historical character. But the true innovation lay in the double arch system, a lower horseshoe arch topped by a second semicircular arch. This allowed for greater height without taller columns and created the iconic forest-like interior that defines the building today. As Córdoba prospered, the mosque grew with it. Between 833 AD and 848 AD, under Abdul Rahman II, the mosque underwent its first expansion. 8 new naves were added to the south, extending the prayer hall while preserving the original structure. The most notable contribution of this phase lies in the craftsmanship, particularly the newly carved capitals producing locally using advanced drilling techniques. In 951 AD, Cordoba's political ambitions rose even higher. Abdul Rahman III, now Caliph, commissioned a new minaret that soared 40 meters. It became a symbol of Umayyad authority and directly influenced later minarets in Sevilla and Marrakesh. Under his rule, Cordoba rivaled and in many ways surpassed Damascus as a center of power, culture, and learning. The most artistically ambitious expansion followed soon after. Between 962 AD and 966 AD, Al-Hakam II carried out what is widely considered the most creative enlargement of the mosque. 12 new sections were added to the south, elongating the building and deliberately emphasizing the mihrab and the maksura as focal points. This phase transformed the mosque from an impressive structure into a masterpiece. Marble, mosaics, and intricate vegetal motifs were introduced, elevating both visual richness and symbolic meaning. 4 skylights were built to bring controlled light into the space, 1 at the entrance of the new extension and 3 leading towards the mihrab. These skylights highlighted a rectangular zone capped with intersecting arches and corbel walls, creating depth and movement through light alone. The mihrab itself was no longer a simple niche. It became a small octagonal chamber crowned with a scalloped shell dome. Byzantine mosaic artisans sent by Emperor Nicephorus II covered its surfaces with shimmering gold and stylized plant motifs. The effect was deliberate. This was not just a directional marker but a spiritual and visual climax. The final Islamic expansion came in 991 AD under Al-Mansur, the powerful Hajib of Caliph Hisham II. This was a political statement as much as an architectural one. 8 new naves were added to the east, resulting in the mosque's final rectangular form. The emphasis here was scale and authority rather than artistic experimentation. In 1236 AD, everything changed. Córdoba was conquered by Christian forces and the mosque, known as the Al-Jama, was consecrated as a Catholic church. The main altar was placed beneath the former skylight of Al-Hakam II, symbolically claiming the heart of the Islamic art structure. Over the next centuries, Christian additions reshaped the interior. In 1489, a main chapel was built. By 1607, With the completion of the transept, this area became known as the Villa Viciosa Chapel. The most dramatic intervention began in 1523, ordered by Bishop Alonso Manrique. A vast transept was inserted directly into the mosque fabric. The first architect, Hernan Ruiz I, approached the task with unusual sensitivity, integrating the caliphal naves as lateral aisles rather than demolishing them outright. After his death, the work continued under Hernan Ruiz II and Juan de Ochoa. From the outside, the transept's vertical brickwork contrasts sharply with the mosque's horizontal rhythm. Inside, it creates a dialogue between Gothic, Renaissance, and Mannerist styles. The transept functions as a massive skylight, flooding the interior with light and permanently altering how the building is experienced. Beneath all of this lies an even older story. Archaeological excavations under the mosque cathedral revealed the remains of a basilica of San Vincent. Today, fragments such as a Paleo-Christian sarcophagus, a marble plaque bearing the Chi Rho symbol, and parts of a Visigoth baptismal font are displayed on site. These remnants confirm that this ground has carried layered religious meaning for nearly 15 centuries. Finally, in 1748, the Catholic chapter commissioned Pedro Duque Cornejo to carve the choir stalls. The result was one of the finest examples of Baroque wooden sculpture in Spain, rich in iconography and craftsmanship. He also designed the episcopal throne that anchors the space visually and symbolically. The Mezquita-Catedral is not a building with a single identity. It is a record of conquest, adaptation, ambition, and continuity. Stone by stone, it preserves the memory of civilizations that did not replace one another cleanly, but built quite literally on top of each other. One of the most striking features of the Mezquita-Catedral is the sheer number of pillars. As you step inside, you are surrounded by what feels like an endless forest of stone. There are over 850 columns spread across the interior. They are arranged in long, regular rows, creating a powerful sense of repetition and depth. This layout was not decorative excess. It was a practical solution to a real architectural problem. When the original mosque was built in the late 8th century, tall columns were difficult to source. Instead of trying to build upward with new materials, the architects reused columns taken from the earlier Roman and Visigothic buildings. These columns varied in height and material, marble, granite, and jasper, but they were unified through an ingenious design. Above each column rises the double arch system. The lower arch is horseshoe-shaped and it is a form common in Visigothic architecture. On top of it sits a second semicircular arch. This system allowed the ceiling to rise higher without taller columns while also distributing weight efficiently. Structurally smart and visually unforgettable. The red and white striped arches were created using alternating brick and stone. This made the arches easier to read visually and emphasized rhythm across the space. As the mosque expanded over centuries, the same system was repeated again and again, preserving unity even as the building grew. Rising above Mezquita-Catedral is its bell tower, a structure that quietly tells the story of transformation rather than replacement. The tower that you see today is not entirely Christian in origin. At its core stands the former minaret built by Abdul Rahman III in the 10th century, once one of the tallest structures in Córdoba. After the Christian conquest, Instead of demolishing it, builders enclose the minaret within a new bell tower. What looks like a single structure is in reality a building wrapped around another building. Climbing the tower is a slow ascent through history. The narrow ramps and stairways follow the original Islamic structure at the center, while the later Christian additions rise around it. As you go higher, the city gradually opens up beneath you. From the top, the view is panoramic and revealing. Directly below lies the vast roofline of the Mezquita itself. A clear sense of its immense scale and rectangular form, something impossible to grasp from the ground. Beyond the mosque, Córdoba unfolds in layers. Whitewashed houses, tiled roofs, church domes, and the curve of the Guadalquivir River. Looking farther out, the city gives way to rolling hills on the horizon, grounding Córdoba within its wider landscape.